Ever wonder how the world's most daring heists remain unsolved for decades? The answer isn't just luck, it's the mind-blowing tech behind them. From vault-cracking gadgets to surveillance-busting tricks, the tech these thieves used wasn't just cutting-edge, it was almost genius. Today we're breaking down the unsolved mysteries of high-tech robberies that still baffle investigators. Exploration Development, the Great Brinks Robbery, 1950. Let's kick things off with one of the most notorious and daring heists in history, the Great Brinks Robbery in 1950, Boston. Known as the crime of the century, this robbery went down in history because of the sheer audacity behind it. The thieves were able to steal $2.7 million in cash and checks, equivalent to over $30 million in today's money, and they pulled it off with an almost perfect plan. What made it so impressive was the technology at the time. The robbers bypassed a state-of-the-art alarm system in the bank, using an advanced technique that many didn't believe was possible. Experts later theorized that the criminals used a primitive version of a circuit disruptor, a device that could disable the alarm without triggering any signals. They even had detailed knowledge of the building's layout, allowing them to disable the alarm and get inside without leaving a trace. Despite years of investigation, the robbers were never caught, and the crime became a blueprint for future high-tech heists. The Banco Central burglary, 1976. Jump ahead to 1976 and the Banco Central burglary in Nice, France. This heist is practically movie material. The criminals rented an empty house nearby and spent months digging a tunnel that stretched 80 meters, about 262 feet, right into the heart of the vault. But they weren't just digging blindly. These thieves employed seismic monitoring technology to detect any changes in the underground landscape, ensuring they avoided triggering the seismic sensors that would have set off alarms. What's even crazier is that they installed an air conditioning system in their tunnel so they could stay cool while digging through solid earth. Their preparation was meticulous. After spending months on the tunnel, they finally broke into the vault and took off with more than $70 million, making it one of the largest heists in history. What's even more astounding is that no one even realized the robbery had occurred until days later, when the vault was finally opened. The Antwerp Diamond Heist, 2003. Let's move on to one of the most audacious diamond heists, the Antwerp Diamond Heist in 2003. This one stands out not only because of the enormous haul, around $100 million in diamonds, but because of the sheer complexity of the operation. The vault at Antwerp Diamond Center was protected by no less than 10 layers of high-tech security, including heat detectors, magnetic fields, and multiple alarm systems. The robbers, however, had clearly done their homework. They used an assortment of gadgets to bypass the vault's security, but one piece of equipment in particular took many by surprise, a custom-made device that mimicked the magnetic field around the vault's lock, tricking it into opening without triggering the alarm. To add to their cleverness, they disabled the CCTV cameras by jamming the signals before entering the vault. The whole operation was so smooth and efficient that no one realized the diamonds were gone until hours after the heist. Despite the criminals being identified, they were never apprehended. The Hatton Garden safe deposit robbery, 2015. Next, let's talk about the infamous Hatton Garden safe deposit robbery in London, 2015. These thieves were no amateurs. They spent days studying the building's security, learning its flaws, and setting up a near-perfect plan. What sets this heist apart is the precision and the high-tech tools the robbers used. After carefully studying the building's layout, they drilled through a 2-meter-thick concrete wall with an industrial-grade drill known as a Hilti DD350. This drill, specifically designed for cutting through tough materials, was able to pierce through the vault's outer wall, giving them access to millions of dollars worth of jewelry, cash, and other valuables. But they didn't stop there. They also disabled the building's internal alarm system by hacking into the electronic circuits. The robbery was carried out over a long weekend, with the criminals managing to bypass almost every security measure in place. To this day, only a small portion of the stolen goods have been recovered, and the mastermind behind the robbery remains at large. The Banco Central Heist, 2005. Then there's the Banco Central Heist in Fortaleza, Brazil, 2005. This heist is infamous for its boldness and the sheer scale of planning involved. The criminals dug an elaborate 256-foot tunnel that connected an empty house to the vault of the bank. What makes this heist even more impressive is the technology the criminals used to dig the tunnel. They reinforced it with concrete, installed lighting, and even set up an electric generator to power their tools. But it wasn't just about brute force. The thieves used sophisticated soil analysis tools to ensure that the tunnel wouldn't collapse during the heist. After months of preparation, they managed to break into the vault and take $70 million. What's even crazier is that, despite the scale of the operation, most of the criminals managed to escape without leaving any trace behind. The majority of the money was never recovered, and the heist remains unsolved to this day, exploiting weaknesses in security. But perhaps the most mind-boggling part of these robberies is not just the tech used, but the way the criminals exploited weaknesses in security systems. Many of these robbers understood that technology alone can't guarantee a foolproof system. They used a combination of technical know-how and old-school tricks to exploit human error. For example, in some cases, the thieves had inside information, either through connections or through infiltrating the bank's operations. They knew the exact spots where security would be weakest, and in some cases, they even hacked into the system to disable cameras and alarms in real time. The role of social engineering in modern heists. One more thing that's often overlooked in high-tech robberies is the role of social engineering. While we often focus on gadgets and cutting-edge tech, a lot of these thieves relied on manipulating people to gain access to secured areas. For example, many criminals used fake identities or posed as legitimate workers, like maintenance staff or delivery personnel, to infiltrate secure buildings. Once inside, they would gather information about the security systems and the best time to strike. In some cases, they would even use distraction techniques, like staging a fake emergency or creating confusion, to blindside security guards and disable surveillance systems. Social engineering has become an integral part of modern heists, and it works in tandem with technology to make these crimes nearly impossible to solve. The difficulty of catching high-tech thieves. What makes these robberies even more fascinating is that, while technology has advanced, many of these cases remain unsolved because investigators couldn't keep up with the level of innovation involved. In some cases, the tech used was so ahead of its time that law enforcement didn't even have the tools to recognize what was happening. In other cases, the criminals were just too clever, exploiting every little vulnerability in the system, from blind spots in surveillance to loopholes in the security protocols. The real twist? While investigators have upgraded their technology to catch up, many of these heists remain unsolved. Some of the tools these thieves used were so advanced for their time that authorities didn't even realize what they were dealing with until years later. Technology is a double-edged sword. It's what keeps our valuables safe, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a weapon for some of the most daring crimes in history. If you found this breakdown fascinating, subscribe for more stories like this, or check out our next video on the most high-tech cons ever pulled off.